cropped sensor versus full frame. Does it even matter anymore? Okay, so maybe, but the technology overall is pretty good. Like in terms of on the Micro Four Thirds sensor or APS-C sensor, like if you're just doing YouTube, it's all pretty good. It's all like probably good enough and solid tech, right? So don't think about it too much if you're just doing YouTube. Just get something that has like the specs that you need, and it works well and is easy enough to use for what you're doing. If you're getting into more professional stuff, well then you could kind of go back and forth and hum and haw and compare things, right? But like if you look at the GH7 and then compare that to like, you know, the S5 2X or, you know, Sony A7S III, like it all might be like just pretty solid, especially if you're lighting your scenes. It might all be kind of good enough, right? Again, people that know more than me could probably make compelling arguments for why Micro Four Thirds sensors are not enough, maybe, but maybe it depends on what you're using it for. If you want to have something that's more of a smaller camera rig in a tight space, then maybe it's good enough. But the main thing, in terms of does it even matter anymore, nowadays it might actually be harder for Micro Four Thirds systems to even compete, because the only thing they really might have is the form factor, but even then they kind of don't even have that sometimes, because you look at like the GH7, it's probably the same size or bigger than the FX3, which is a full frame sensor, and that FX3 could be used to film movies and stuff. It was used to film one science fiction film kind of recently, I believe. What was it called? It was that one about AI and the robots and stuff like that. I'm blanking on the name, I think, but if you know the name, if you just even look up what films were shot on the FX3, you'll probably find it. But Micro Four Thirds, at least in Panasonic's case, like the GH7 seems like it's a pretty big body, right? The camera body. And so it's hard to make the case other than price, but even then the GH7 I think has kind of got more of a higher price point compared to some other stuff. It's just a hard argument to make for Micro Four Thirds right now, given that full frame tech. Like if you watch Casey over at Camera Conspiracies on YouTube, he's talked about this in some way, I think, and it's just like he's talked about how full frame tech has caught up or something like that. So now it's just more like, what's your budget for price, because the full frame lenses and camera bodies are probably more expensive. But in some cases, like with, you know, Panasonic S5 II, it's like that's not a bad price point in terms of what we're talking about. And like, who's making Micro Four Thirds cameras that are like up to par with those specs right now for a similar price point or a cheaper price point? The Micro Four Thirds market is not like super big in terms of the amount of cameras that are out there. It's going to be probably mainly from Panasonic, and then Olympus has their stuff. If you watch Camera Conspiracies, Olympus is kind of more of a joking matter, but maybe it depends on who you talk to. You have like their OM1 or whatever, but is that even like that good compared to other things of a similar price point? You're probably maybe better off to, depending on what you're doing and stuff, depending on the lenses you already have or not, maybe it's better to just look at APS-C sized sensors, because in terms of that, if you go with the FX30, in terms of bang for buck, like your value, I don't own that camera, but it's looking pretty good. And then again, talk about the R50V, the Canon R50V, looks like pretty good, quality for your price of what you're getting there. It's worth considering. But like, is it on par with full frame? In some ways, probably no. But it might be, if you're just doing the YouTube stuff, it might be something that's like worth noting. And if you're on a budget, right, going for that. So does it even matter anymore? Maybe a decent thing to say is, in terms of the whole cropped sensor to full frame comparison, it probably matters less now more than ever, as like the playing fields are kind of, you know, getting similar or closer with time. And look at like what Fujifilm is doing. You know, it's like stuff is kind of like all getting on a definitely a good enough level where kind of whatever you pick that's come out in the last few years is probably, especially for YouTube, good enough. It's more just like the look that you want if you care about the image or the lens options or the price point is going to be probably more of the thing here. But at the end of the day, if you're going for like top tier quality and specs, full frame is probably where it's going to be at. But price, consider that. I'll end the video there. Does it matter? It's probably mattering less as time goes on and as the tech improves. If you're going back to older gear, you know, maybe it might be a different conversation depending on who you talk to or what you're talking about. But I'll leave that there. Was this video helpful? If you have questions, if you want to ask me questions, I have a Skool Community. Link in description. Currently running a 7-day free trial. Feel free to hop in, look around, ask questions right in the Skool Community. And thanks for watching.